Hi everybody, Geraldine Rose here. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit of Christmas baking. I did do one last year as well. I cook gluten-free and almost sugar-free, and I do cloudy dumplings. That part that I didn't record is this gorgeous bowl of nuttiness. This is all the rum tough fruit. I start that typically around the fall solstice. So back in September, you can see the ingredients I've got listed there for you. I chop all those fruit up. The one thing that is the sugar is the maraschino cherries and their juice. And I combine that in the fridge with the spices and leave it covered in the fridge for a couple of months for it to cure up and soak all that goodness in. Then towards the beginning of December, I bring it out and I start putting my wet ingredients in, which are the coconut oil, the lard, the butter. I don't use soot anymore because a lot of those are coated with flour, which is something that I'm insensitive to, hence the gluten-free cooking. Combine those all up. These are farm fresh eggs. That's why they were double yolk ones. Mix all the wet ingredients together. And I do use real vanilla. It does make a difference. Some people still put a little titch of molasses in as well too, but a quarter of a cup. The sugar replacements, I use a combination of the Swerve brown sugar and white sugar, which is erythritol. Sometimes I do put a titch of sucralose in, but most of the time it's the coconut sugar and the monk fruit, which is really good. They haven't found any problems with the monk fruit so far. Measure those out. I put it in with the wet. I do sift the coconut sugar. It tends to clump. And once I've got those mixed together, I will dump it into the bowl and I will let it sit on the counter while I prepare the pudding bowls so that the sugar replacements have a chance to melt down and blend in with what is in the bowl. And that rum tough fruit, towards the end of the 3 months, it's going to get really gummy, hence why we were stirring it up at first. This is also why you want to get right down to the bottom of the bowl. And I slide the big spoon down the side of the bowl so that I'm not marshing up the maraschino cherries, because I like when you cut open the plum puddings or cloudy dumplings that you see a nice chunk of the cherry in there. I used to put Brazil nuts in. I used to put hazelnuts in. But then a lot of the people that I was giving them out to, some of them had nut allergies, and you couldn't take that chance anymore. So over the years, I have taken that out. And this recipe that I'm using, I have been using variations of it since 1984. That's when I got my Grandma McKillican's pudding bowls and the old recipe. And over the years, I have converted it to almost sugar-free and gluten-free. So once I've got those wet ingredients all mixed up, and as I said, the bowl is covered, it's off to the side, I'm sifting out my dry ingredients. I combine 3 different types of alternate gluten-free flours. So that gives me a combination of rice flour, brown rice flour, the potato. I think they've got a version of like cornstarch in there. It's got a bit of xanthan gum and the psyllium fiber in there as binders. And cream of tartar will help to cause there not to be as much of a graininess through that flour. And then, of course, your baking powder too. Again, same thing. Mix it up. Dive down, fold it over. Dive down, fold it over. Don't mash your ingredients that are in there. You're going to want to still see sometimes you'll have chunks of white. Some people coat their fruit beforehand. I find that way that I soak the mixture for months, it doesn't matter, that flour just all incorporate into there anyway. And the bowls, I've greased them with coconut oil and put flour dustings around them, tapped them out upside down. And when I'm putting this plum pudding in, the mixture, I'm doing a little bit in the bottom of each bowl, and I'm making certain that I press it down to the bottom of the bowl to get the air bubbles out, because you can't really tap these bowls. This plum pudding is very heavy. It's really goopy, and you will not be able to tap the air bubbles out of it. You can see also on those that I have got a little bit of a dent in where I pushed the spoon into the middle, because they're going to puff up quite a bit. And if you don't put that indentation in your batter in the bowl, it will pop your tin foil when you put it into the water bath. I'm wrapping each of these with tin foil. I used to tie them off with a string around the top, which is where that lip from the pudding bowls comes from. I don't do that anymore. I find that as long as I don't have my water too deep, that usually I'm okay. The original way of doing coating dumplings from my Scottish heritage is to put that in a cheesecloth or a heavy muslin linen, and actually put it right into the water and boil it. You have it strung from a stick and you boil it in the water. Now, I'm not into that kind of density. I am sort of combining my grandma's recipe with my other grandma's recipe, and my other grandma was from Southampton, Isle of Wight, so she was a Sassenach. She was English. Combination of both traditions, though, right? So it's kind of like a plum pudding slash clootie dumpling. And I get them into a simmering water. I need 2 pots because of the amount of puddings that I do. I'm checking there to make certain that I've got a slow boil going. You want to have a slow boil going the entire time. For me, my stove sets anywhere between 3.5, and 4.5, depending on the size of the pot. And for the smaller plum pudding bowls, I put a little bit of tinfoil ring underneath them so that they are not rattling around as much, and that it brings them up higher so that they're all at the same water level within the pot. We've gone through our time. I've been checking on it in the interim, making certain that it's got water in there that is hot. So sometimes you do have to add water in the middle. I'm dumping off some of the water because my canning tongs do not go around these bowls, and I do have to bring them out with oven mitts and make certain that I don't soak myself and get them wet, which is where you transfer the heat and get yourself burned. Turn them on the side a little bit, let them drain. There will be water in there, which is why you do have to wrap them really well with the tin foil and really tightly, and you can see it pouring out of there. I put them into the sink to let them cool down a little bit before I even attempt to take that tin foil off. Rolling them on the side, and you can see that even here with them cooling down for a few minutes already, there's going to be a whack load of steam that's going to come out. I do put that in recycling too, by the way. Save the planet. But also yay for continuing on traditions, right? So I do several different sizes. I've got very small bowls, I've got medium bowls, I've got large, and I've got one extra large bowl. And I used to disperse them out for so many people, but I found that I wasn't being gifted back, even though some people really loved them and said it was just like their Glasgow grandma's recipe. These are them at the end. You're going to want to pop them back into the fridge. I've moved away from liquor as I've gotten older. I just tend to put fruit juice now on them to give them a dousing before Christmas, and then you just steam them up and put whatever sauce you want on them. So enjoy, everybody. Thanks for being that change you want to see in the world. Hope you have a great Christmas. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.